Welcome once again. My name is Sean Shaw with Vanguards of Democracy. This is a pre-recorded episode, so I won't be able to take questions from the studio this week, but I would love to hear from you all either on social media or YouTube. Don't forget to check us out on those platforms. Today's theme is activism. Today, I have the honor of welcoming an absolute legend of civil service, an inspiration to generations of social activists, one of the most influential mentors in my life, Senator Arthenia Joyner. She joins us today for an interview that I believe stands out among the crowd in terms of sincerity and breadth, which is saying something, considering Senator Joyner is one of the most interviewed people that I know. But first, I'm joined by the esteemed Dr. Sheron Brown, Executive Director of Tampa Bay Healthcare Collaborative, to learn more about healthcare equity and what we can do about the gaps in healthcare for not only people of color, but all in the Tampa Bay community. That starts right now, so don't go anywhere. All right, we are back with another segment of Vanguards of Democracy, and here with Dr. Sheron Brown. We thank you for joining us today. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for asking me to come.
No, of course, and before we start, she is a member of Delta Sigma Theta. I just want everybody to know that because I am the host, and I am a member of Omega Psi Phi, which means I do what I want. And so we got the Deltas in the house today, so I appreciate that. Dr. Brown, I want to talk about your organization, Tampa Bay Healthcare Collaborative, of which you are the executive director, right?
Correct.
What is the Tampa Bay Healthcare Collaborative, and what do you all do?
We are a member-driven nonprofit, and essentially what we do is we connect the health equity ecosystem through in-person and tech-enabled solutions so that we can encourage collaboration toward advancing community well-being. I could say so much more, but that's it in a
I'm going to
nutshell.
drill down because that
Okay.
was a lot. That was a lot there. You sounded like a lawyer there. I want to ask, for the benefit of the audience, what is health equity?
Oh, that's good. I simply like to say community well-being because you can't have community well-being without health equity. And when you do have health equity, that means that every single person has access to having their best health possible.
Regardless of color,
Zip code,
regardless of income,
socioeconomic
regardless
status.
of background.
There you go.
That's what equity is,
All
right?
of it.
Everybody is entitled. And I saw this
Yes.
on your website.
Yeah.
Healthcare is a human right.
Yes.
No, those of us in this place right now believe that. Some might not, but the ones on this show right now,
Absolutely.
we do. And so the equity is making sure everybody has access to good health incomes regardless of zip code. And we know that that does not exist
That does
right
not.
now. That clearly, and I think nothing is more indicative of that than some of this vaccine stuff as well. And where it was rolled out, how it was rolled out, and who was getting it, and where they were getting it, and how they were getting it. So
Right, and then misinformation layered on top
Right.
of that did not help.
it didn't. And let's talk about that a little bit because I always gauge my community stuff by the barbershop,
Okay.
right? And so I was in the barbershop the other day, a while ago, when the vaccines were first rolled out, and it was the FEMA site is right next to where I get my hair cut, and I said, well, I'm going to get the vaccine, and you would have thought they looked like my hair was on fire, and they probably 85% of the people in there were like, no. And this is a barbershop, black men. 85%. I'm not getting it. It's too early. We don't know no background. You trust the government. I don't trust them to stick me if I don't trust them for other stuff. And da-da-da-da-da-da. And I was trying to argue. What are you talking about, man? Everybody else is getting it. And they say, how about after you get it, you come back? And then maybe
Make sure your eyeballs still
make
in
sure
place.
that you all right, Sean, then we'll get it. But I mean, there's a lot of pushback. I don't think that exists to the same extent now, but were you sensing some of that, particularly in the communities of color?
Absolutely. And it started at home on my WhatsApp group with my family, just seeing what was scrolling up. We have the history that justifies
I
distrust,
totally agree.
right? And so you can understand
You
why.
can say the Tuskegee experiment, and it is two things can be true though. Like that can have taken
Absolutely.
place, and you need to get the vaccine.
Absolutely. So yeah. So I did actually see it. I still see it. I'm surprised that I know healthcare workers, people in the health space that are still skeptical of accepting the vaccine for various reasons. And at the same time, there's this demonizing of the unvaccinated, right?
That
And-
is right.
And that doesn't necessarily help the
It
cause
doesn't.
either. And so I think what I have seen is just having those conversations, creating the spaces to bring people together to ask those questions that have given birth to their skepticism is what helps.
Right. If you don't get it, that's a personal choice, and I'm fine with that.
Right.
That's okay. We all have our
Right.
choices, but I don't want the choice to necessarily be based on misinformation
Oh, absolutely
or
not.
the politicization, whatever the word is, of this.
Yeah.
Because that's what's going on now. That
Yeah.
it's a political statement
Yeah, and I
as
don't
to whether you're getting it
understand.
or
Like,
not.
there are people who are organizing, or who have, because they're no longer with us, who have organized marches and protests and what have you, that are anti-vaccine folks, and then they pass away because they contracted COVID, they didn't have the vaccine, and then they leave wives behind with multiple children. And then those groups of people are still, you just saw your friend die, but you're still fighting it because it's been politicized. So you're so, I don't want to use the word brainwashed, but something is going on in your brain where you still are believing there's something wrong with it, even though your friend just died. And you're still saying
Right.
COVID is not real, even though your friend just died. I don't understand.
I went to my doctor yesterday, actually, and we were talking, and he was like, I have this patient who's 70-year-old plus female, comorbidity, like very high risk, will not take the vaccine. And he said she believes everything I tell her. When I told her to get the vaccine, it's the first argument we ever had, and she's been my patient for 7 years, and she called me a Biden stooge. And the doctor was just like, you could tell he's just, everything else I tell you to do, like, you agree and
Right.
I'm your doctor, and
Right.
that's fine. But
How come what I have to say is valid except for this one
except
thing?
for this one thing. It's
I would love to have deep conversations with these people to unearth what's really happening.
I think a majority of it is politics. There's other reasons too, but a lot of
Mm-hmm.
it, once she threw Biden in there, you knew it was political at that point. Okay, we've gotten off track, but
Okay.
that's good.
Okay.
That is good. I want talk more about specific things you all are doing, projects you have going on around here through the organization.
Well, when you ask me what we do, I immediately say we connect the health equity ecosystem. So at the start of this year, we launched what we call the Tbhc Collaborate app. Tampa Bay Healthcare Collaborative has been in existence for 18 years. I've been in the role for a little over 2 years. And I started right before COVID came about. And one of the things that I saw was that nonprofits, and at the time I referred to it as the social determinants of health space. Now I say the health equity ecosystem. But what I saw was they didn't know they existed.
Yeah.
There's so many. There are like over 10,000
That's the problem. It's not
nonprofits in
just
the
unique to Tampa, but it certainly exists here in Tampa.
Absolutely. There are over 10,000 nonprofits in the health equity ecosystem. And, I was just on a call and I was listening to some of the things that some representatives from nonprofits were saying it would be great if we had in our community. And because I get to connect with so many, I'm thinking to myself, but that does exist. You just don't know it. And so what we have is the Tbhc Collaborate platform. It's an app. You can use it on your desktop, Android, on Android, iPhone.
I was about to say, everybody don't have an Android now.
And I have an iPhone, right?
Right.
But basically, it gives you the opportunity to find each other, connect, and explore opportunities to collaborate on that app, so that collectively we can do the work together to advance health equity. And we're in the process now of taking the app up to level 2 for 2022. Oh, I just like that. So that's one major thing that we're
Let me
doing
ask,
right
who
now.
would you think the preferred audience for that app is? Who should be downloading the app and using it? Somebody looking for just resources in the space, or someone who's having health concerns now and looking for finding resources, or what?
So we serve the people who serve the people,
Right.
right? So we ourselves are not the provider. So let me give you an example. There was one organization that they're a health insurance company, and they wanted to provide some training around HIV or what have you. And so what people will tend to do is come to me. Sheron doesn't know everybody, everything, right? But it's in the app. And so that's where I sent them, and they were able to find and connect with the right people there to then provide whatever services they need to provide. So again, it's the people that are in the health equity space, the social determinants of health space, that may need to offer their clients a resource that they don't offer, but they don't know exactly where to go and find it.
Right.
They can go into the app and find it.
What are some of the obstacles you might run into in trying to be your best organizational self? Because I know you're a nonprofit, so I know funding is a perpetual thing. But what are some of the obstacles here? Because again, we talked about this. There's a lot of organizations that exist in Tampa that have overlapping missions that are
Yes.
operating in silos that may be competing for
Yes.
the small amount of nonprofit dollars out there. But what are some of the obstacles that may be standing in your way from y'all doing everything you could be?
You just said some of them.
Right. Well, I set them so you wouldn't have to. So I'll take the incoming.
You just said some of them. Can I just be real
Yeah,
and
I hope you
okay.
are.
And again, because I'm not using names, it's safe. There are people in organizations that are concerned that if I do collaborate, what will that mean for my organization? What will that mean for funding? What will that mean for my staffing? What will that mean for my resources? Would I be viewed as less valuable? Um, and there is this thing of I need my organization to be the one that's viewed, that's leading whatever the initiative may be. That is an obstacle when we're talking about we want to help bring people out of poverty. We want to solve the problems around food insecurity. Even if it's unconsciously concerned with, will I be first? Will I be the one that's the shining star while people are hurting? Like, that's a problem.
It's a huge problem, and you've identified it is a problem that a lot of us are frustrated with. It exists in all communities, but here in Tampa, it's one that exists, and
Yeah.
whose name's going to be in the paper or
Right.
who's going to be in the photo, and
Right.
I mean, and listen, if we cure poverty in Tampa, 70% of the organizations that deal with poverty may cease to exist. So, but is that a good thing or a bad thing? We've cured poverty. Wasn't that the point?
I think there are enough problems in the world that if we did such a thing, look,
We
as an
got other stuff to
organization,
solve.
pivot and then look
Right.
to the new problem.
Right.
Right? We shouldn't want to exist as a nonprofit to keep solving the same problem over and over. We should want the problem to go away because there are others to be solved. And we're smart enough, I'd like to believe, to be able to figure out how to pivot and move on to the next problem.
I love it. You speaking my language. Mine. You said you've been in existence 18 years. You've been here for 2. So I wanted to get into some of the background, but I want to ask about you a little bit. How did you first get into healthcare?
Wow. This is interesting because my mother, I'm from New York, and I had 8 big boxes in her apartment that I guess she was tired of looking at.
Right.
So they just magically appeared
nice.
in St. Pete last week. And so anyway, there were lots of old things in there that just kind of reminded me of my journey. But what I realized is I've been interested in health. I didn't realize this until I looked at something in the box. Like since teenage years, I've always been concerned about well-being. I've always been concerned about, are you taking care of yourself? Are you eating the right thing? What are you doing to minimize stress? That's always been a concern of mine. And it wasn't until, well, a little bit in 2005, but definitely around 2016 when I said, okay, I want to shift careers because I was in education in the K-12 space. And I started off by saying, okay, I'll start by going and get training to be a health coach. So it's always been there. I did a little bit of training back in 2005, but in 2016, I said it's time to change the career and move in a new direction.
What surprised you the most about this healthcare kind of pivot? Yeah, for better or for worse, good or bad?
When I started sitting in on conversations, when I got in this role, I realized it's the same problems in education. It's just different vocabulary. We're using different words, but we're saying the same things.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
If you had advice on someone that wanted to carve a career in healthcare, what would you give that what kind of advice would you give that young person starting off? And you've got a unique perspective on this because you didn't necessarily start out in healthcare,
Right.
but you knew you ultimately might end up there anyway. You got any advice for
Yep.
someone on that?
Especially if they're getting into the problem solving space, whether it be advocacy or grassroots organizations or anything like that, I would say give yourself the space to be quiet and create your own thoughts. What I realize is, and not just in healthcare, in our culture, there is groupthink, right? There tends to be terms that once they're popular, everybody's using them, right? And then we tend to keep maybe doing the same things, making the same suggestions as solutions over and over because we're in this groupthink mode.
I mean, this applies to politics too. You're exactly right.
So what I would say is give yourself space to step back and say, okay, how do I look at this differently? And what could be a different solution other than what everybody else is saying?
Well,
and then have the courage to say it.
Because everybody thinks they have to do what you're supposed to do, which
Mhm.
means you graduate high school and you go to college and you go to grad school.
Oh
and
my
then
God,
and that's not
yes.
everyone's path. That's some people's path.
No, some.
But that's not everyone's path. And
No.
our society is geared towards everyone doing that.
Big time.
And everyone doesn't need to be doing that.
No.
I tell people
No.
all the time, the guy who comes to my house to fix my electricity, he makes more than I did coming straight out of law school.
You know, those 8 boxes that just came down from New York, they helped to remind me that I believe I'm where I'm supposed to be now, and I probably would have gotten there in a different way had I not gone down the path of what you just said, doing what I think I'm supposed to do. What do you
Right.
want to be when you grow up? What are you going to major in college? I didn't know. I just picked accounting.
Right.
That lasted, I graduated and lasted in an accounting job like what? 3 weeks.
Right.
And never went back. And so yes, to what you're saying, you gotta, don't get me started on the education side, because I really feel like we have to we have to be cultivating what's inside of our students to help bring that out. And it's not necessarily going to be that they want to be an engineer. Everybody's not going to want to be an engineer or a doctor or a nurse or whatever the roles are. But I think that if we did more in education and cultivating what is it that you enjoy doing and then helping to groom that, then we'd have more people in the roles that bring them joy,
Bingo.
working with less stress.
Yeah, because if someone's like, I don't have the grades, or I don't have the drive, or I don't have
Yeah.
the ability, or I don't have the desire to go be a lawyer.
Right,
If you don't have another place for them to go,
right.
you've got a problem.
Right.
There need to be other things and other things that are attracted to people.
I'm
You're
in
exactly
agreement.
right. All right, let's talk about we're winding down here.
Okay.
You've been great. I appreciate you've been real, which I appreciate. We're gonna have you back. What are you thankful for during this kind of season of being thankful and Thanksgiving and all that good stuff?
My spiritual growth. That's what I'm thankful for. Um, I used to, so I don't know if I said this already, originally born and raised Brooklyn, New York, right? And I am the child of immigrants. My whole family's Jamaican. And so because of that, I was very much I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to make things happen. I'm going to get my grind on, I get my hustle on, all that. And what I realized was, that's tiring. That's tiring. There's more of a flow of life that I can go with, and surrendering to what's being put before me, and that's more joyful.
And we're gonna end right there because we ain't topping that. That is where we're ending. We're not topping that. I appreciate that. By the way, my mother's from Guyana.
Okay.
And so we got some West Indian stuff to talk about too. But
Okay.
I want to thank you for being on, Dr.
Absolutely.
Brown. What's the website for your organization?
www.tampabayhealth.org.
Okay, and that's healthcare equity we're talking about, and that is something that we talk about on this show. Whether it's healthcare, whether it's housing, whether it's job
That's right.
placement and development, whether it is wealth, equity is what is so important.
Absolutely.
And that's an important word to understand. So
Mhm.
I want to thank you for being on. We've got your headshot here to put you on the wall of fame behind you.
Watch it now.
So we thank you. Go ahead and sign that, and we appreciate
Oh
you.
my God. Sign it now?
Sound it now.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Okay. This is wonderful.
Yeah, no, we're thankful to have you on, and we appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. All right, welcome back to another episode of Vanguards of Democracy, and I'm here with someone that doesn't need any introduction in the state of Florida or on this show, and that is Senator Arthenia Joyner, my mentor. Someone that I don't say no to, someone that inspires me, someone who is like a second mother to me. I can't say enough good things about you, Senator Joyner. You know I love you, and I'm just so happy that you are here finally on the podcast. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Sean, for inviting me.
Of
Now
course.
that I know that I represent all the good things that you have, I'm just elated to know that you look upon me as
Of course,
somebody.
I told you this while we were in my office. My dad, when I first moved to Tampa, he told me three things. He said, "You need to find a church, you need to join the NAACP, and you need to get with Senator Arthenia Joyner." Those were the three things he told me when I was moving to Tampa, and I swear to God, that's what he told me when we were moving
Well,
here. He was, of course, a
of
big fan of yours
course.
as well. And
Well, Justice Shaw and I go
yes,
way back to 1968 when the Florida black lawyers raised money to send me to Hawaii to the American Bar Association Law Student Division meeting, because that was 1967. I was president of the student bar at FAMU College of Law, and your dad led that effort. So, he's always been supportive of young lawyers and those who aspire to be lawyers. So, you uh you come from good stock.
well, no, I appreciate it, and it is one of the reasons I feel so strongly about us recognizing our giants that are in our communities now, of which you are one, and connecting them with the next generation coming up. Because you read about Arthenia Joyner in a book, you see Arthenia Joyner's picture in a portrait in something. You hear about Arthenia Joyner during Black History Month and all the wonderful things she's done. Well, she's right here. And she is someone that we all need to give roses to and recognize all the good things you've done. And I do this on this show often, is talk about how much respect I have for you and what you've done. And I lived in a household with someone who was like that, and it's one of the reasons I'm always drawn to those that fought those battles that we thought were over, but they're not. And I want to talk to you about how you feel. Let's talk about that now. How do you feel about where we are as a country in 2020s versus when you started your activism in the 60s and 70s? Have we come? How far have we come?
We've come a long way, but oh my God, we have miles to go. I mean, it's a flashback to me to the 60s after George Floyd's death and the reaction from around the country. But the good thing that came out of it was that for the first time in my lifetime, I saw people from all walks of life coming together, speaking up for the injustice that had been perpetrated on that black man and so many others. So the fight the struggle is forever.
Yeah,
I tell all the young folks, if you wake up black in America in the morning, you will have the same struggle and fight that I had in the 60s, except now it comes in different flavors, but it's the same.
and it's strange because there was a time where it wasn't in your face; it was in the corporate boardroom, or it was in promotions you didn't get. It was kind of the racism was things you didn't ultimately get. And now I feel like we've turned the clock back to now the racism was in your face again. And people are very comfortable with, saying certain things, or, we don't need to talk about critical race theory, or, if you just did what the police said to do, nothing bad would happen to you, black folks. Like, we're back to that. That's why I think we've gone backwards a little bit, and kind of who we had as president last time, and the things he was comfortable saying and the things his supporters were comfortable saying. That's why it's just I am disappointed. I thought we were further than we were.
I I I can remember in the Florida Senate when there was an amendment to sever the FAMU FSU School of Engineering. And FAMU is the fiscal agent, and it's a partnership between the two institutions, but there was an effort by way of an amendment to change that. And my God, that was the day that Arthenia Joyner all hell broke out on the floor of the Senate. I said, here I am, some 40 years hence from FAMU, graduating from Florida A&M University College of Law, when on the finals day of our finals, our law books were removed and taken to Florida State University Law School. And here I am living this again, where now you're trying to take away our right to have a prominent role in the School of Engineering. And I said, no way, over my dead body. And I tell you, we had a healthy debate. Out of that debate, the books that were removed from the FAMU College of Law were sent back to FAMU. And the law school, the School of Engineering is still a partnership, and FAMU is still a fiscal agent. And the lesson learned is that you have to fight for what you believe in every day of your life, because nothing changes without you being there to agitate, aggravate, or make whatever
Yes.
difference you can. The difference for me now is back in the 60s, I was on the outside of the movement as an activist. And then in 2000, as a member of the Florida legislature, I was on the inside chipping away at the inequities and the injustices that we constantly suffer from as
And you need
Black
both.
people in America.
And you need both. I would tell people when I was in the legislature, I need you to be in the streets being an activist to push me to do what I need to do in Tallahassee. We have to have all this. It's all part of the struggle.
Absolutely.
And
It's
you also
absolutely.
said something. Listen, it's no secret. I'm frustrated with politics these days, and particularly the Democratic Party sometimes. But the solution is not to be done, or to give up, or to not vote, or to not participate. That is not the solution, no matter how frustrated you get. It is to continue to aggravate and agitate and be involved until you win the battles. You ain't gonna win every
Absolutely.
battle,
No, you're
but you're
not
certainly
going.
gonna lose every battle you don't fight.
Absolutely. You have got to be in the fight.
Right.
The battle is one-sided without us being there agitating and aggravating and participating. And I just get so disgusted with young folks and people who say, well, it doesn't make any difference. I'm not going to vote. It doesn't matter. Yes, it does. You have a driver's license and the government mandates that. You have a vested interest in knowing what legislation that the 160 members of the Florida legislature and those in Congress are promulgating because it controls your life.
Guess who's not giving up? Those people that stormed the Capitol on January 6th.
That's right.
Now, if you want them to be in charge because you disappointed and mad at whoever and you're just going to stay home, well, then that's who you're giving the country to. And I refuse to do that, no matter how mad I get or frustrated. Crazy people are not giving up.
No.
And so we can't.
No,
that
they're
is part of the
not,
problem.
and we can't give up.
What kind of, because I came to you and I asked these same questions, and I want to, and people now I've now, I guess, gotten old enough that people ask me these questions, but what advice are you giving to a young person that comes up to you and says, I want to get involved in politics? Or they may say, I'm running for so-and-so. What advice can you give me? What are you telling them?
Well, that politics, and I say you want to become an elected official. I use that term as opposed to politics and being a politician, because people tend to denigrate that term and think negatively about it. But if you are earnest and sincere, and this is what you really want to do, then you have to know and understand that being an elected official is public service, something that burns deep within you, that you want to go out and make a difference. It can't be about a paycheck. It's got to be about helping people. It's about the struggle that we're in and lifting all of us up, irrespective of our backgrounds and what we may have personally. This is not about you. It's about the people. And that's what drives me, is that I could get up every day and fight in Tallahassee because I knew that I was fighting for the people who look like me, who are constantly marginalized and discriminated against. And I just look back at my life, and when I was 5 and saw the Ku Klux Klan march in Lakeland, and not knowing or really understand it until my father explained it to me, what it really meant as a Black girl in America, to see these men with these hoods on and those robes walking down Memorial Boulevard, which is now which it was North Street then, is Memorial Boulevard now. So we need people who have a genuine concern for folks, who do not look at what can I get out of this for me. It is not about you. It is about the struggle and the fight and the fact that you want people to entrust you to go up and represent their best interests. That's got to be the driving force, not, well, what can I get out of this?
I mean, it's the most sacred thing I think that exists in our democracy is you're a representative of your constituents to go do what they think you are best to do. That's why you won the election. And so you've got to go do it. And if you're doing it right, it's an awesome responsibility.
And you should be prepared.
It's not about title. It's not about paycheck.
None of that. Because I tell you, if it's about paycheck,
I lost more money being in elected office than I ever made.
And that's one point I want to make. Folks tend to think that legislators make big bucks. They make $29,600.
My aides made more than me.
$88. The aides make more. And so that tends to be a problem for getting people who can do the job to run, because the pay is insufficient to sustain a family. And I had a bill to increase the pay to $50,000.
Well, because it also produces certain people that can do it.
That's right.
You want a bus driver to be in Tallahassee. You want someone that can't do it on $28,000. You want those kind of people in Tallahassee.
Absolutely. You want that diversity of representation.
Bingo.
And my whole argument was, I want people in my community, everyday people, to be able to come up here. So why can't we pay $50,000? And of course they said, we're going to kill your bill, Joyner. Do you want to withdraw it? Hell no, I'm a big girl. Vote on it. And they did. And I got a couple of votes in committee, but at least I stood up for what I believe in, because I do want the bus driver, the waitress, the school teacher, all of them to have that opportunity. Who can go to Tallahassee?
A bunch of lawyers.
$29,000.
A bunch of lawyers like us, of which, we're arguing against our self-interest, so to speak. But when you look around in the legislature, who are you looking at? Retired? Are there lawyers? Are there well-to-do business people? And there's not that diversity of background, experience, and socioeconomic.
But do explain that even those of us who are professional blacks who go to the legislature, if you got a solo practice or you come from a small law firm, you suffer the economic consequences of being in
your community grinding, getting clients, and doing work. You have in Tallahassee.
Right. And nobody wants to wait until now. We can get a continuance.
Right.
The law says that, but what clients want their case continued while you in Tallahassee fighting for
I
them?
can't talk to you or deal with your case or return a phone call for 3 months.
That's right.
What clients you go get? They don't care that you in Tallahassee. They might have hired you because you were in Tallahassee and they thought that was nice until they realized what it really means. Yeah, you're right. That's a loss there. But it's so important what you said about young people and why you would get involved in this and what you ought to be doing it for. Now, someone like you that's got these accomplishments that would dwarf United States senators. What are you most proud of?
Having been elected by the people of Hillsborough County to represent them in the Florida legislature, because that represents the totality of the community saying, we trust you and we respect the fact that you will go up there and expound and represent and fight for our best interests. I was proud of being president of the National Bar, but I was elected by my peers in the legal profession. The diversity wasn't there, and it was commendable, and I loved it, but there's nothing like having the community to stand behind you and say, we want you to represent us because we know that what you do is in our best interest. And that's what I got from that. So the nights that I stayed up reading those bills and the arguments made, it was all because I knew that this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to do the very best that I could do and the best that my constituents expected of me. Anything less, and they don't fail to let you know how they feel about what you do. You have to be ready to handle it.
You got to be thick-skinned, I know.
Yes,
I
but
know.
it was wonderful. I took the position that I could defend my vote. I could always explain it to my constituents, even though on many issues we were on different sides. And at the end of the day, that was what I did. And for 16 years, I was reelected each time. And
Well, you were reelected with nominal opposition, and one of the reasons is because the people see who's fighting for them, and what you explained. The people see who's there to be their voice and who takes it serious and who is for and by the people. And if they see it in you, they're going to reward you. And you were rewarded with nominal opposition. The people were always with you. No one's running against you for any kind of seat. It's because people knew what you were there for, and they could see it all over you. And that's a testament to you. Another testament is I can't go nowhere with you. I don't care where in the state we go without everyone talking about your legacy, your service, and all the wonderful things about you. That is also a kind of a testament to all that you've done as well, and how strongly people feel about you. Talk about, because this has always fascinated me, the apartheid stuff and South Africa and your involvement in that, as I think when you were with the National Bar. Talk about how
yes.
that came about.
Okay, I was president of the National Bar in 1984-85. Prior to that time, I'd served as treasurer for 10 years. In fact, in 1973, when I was initially elected, it was because the young lawyers came together in San Francisco at our annual convention and said it's time for a change. So even there, I was fighting to put young folks up in the mix of the leadership, and was successful. And love the Bar Association because it's nothing more exciting than to go to the National Bar every year and see all of these bright, brilliant Black lawyers. Johnny Cochran, that's where I first met Johnny, and it was just so exciting. But I, as president, it was my job to represent all of the nation's Black lawyers and law students and jurists. And this was during the Nixon administration. And there was a move, apartheid was the law of the land in South Africa. And we took the position that it was discriminatory. It was unconstitutional in our view. It was denigrating to Black folks. And so there was a movement afoot. I think it was Randall Robinson who led it in Washington, D.C., to demonstrate at the South African embassy. And I wanted the nation and the president of the United States at that time to know that they were on the wrong side of history. And so on behalf of the Black lawyers, I participated that day along with Ramsey Clark, former Attorney General, Gola Butcher, a law professor at Georgetown, Victor McTeer, a civil rights lawyer from Mississippi who recently moved to Florida, and Father Drennan, the Catholic priest who was a congressman. And we participated that day and marched in front of the embassy, and we were arrested. And the rest is history. The next day we went to court and the charges were dismissed. But I was speaking on behalf of the nation's Black lawyers, judges, and law students. And, if a lawyer does something that falls outside of the regulations of the Bar Association, you're subject to some type of penalty. So what I did was I called the Florida Bar in advance of going up there and saying, look, I'm going up to participate in the demonstrations against apartheid, and I may be arrested. And I know that when lawyers get arrested, the grievance committee is contacted and subsequently you can be sanctioned. But I just said, merely I'm representing all of the Black lawyers in America. And if you want them all down here in Florida, then go for it and come after me. I never heard from the Florida Bar. But I put them on notice that if you attack me, you attack all the Black lawyers in this country.
These battles, the battles aren't over. Let me ask you about this, because I've always heard stories of what it was like for my father practicing law as a young Black man when there weren't but 20, lawyers that were black around the state. What was it like for you practicing as a young black woman? What was it like?
Well, this was 1969, 1970, and I was the first black woman lawyer here in Hillsborough County to practice law. And of course, there were black men lawyers, uh, William Fordham, Francisco Rodriguez, S. Kenneth Rogers. That was the generation of lawyers before Delano Stewart, Warren Dawson, and George Edgecombe, who came around right prior to my coming home. And I came home all idealistic. Oh, I'm going to practice law and get me a job somewhere and blah, blah, blah. Not one door opened for me everywhere I went. Now, Delano became the first black assistant public defender. Warren became the first black assistant city attorney, and George Edgecombe became the first black county solicitor, which later became the state attorney's office. And Arthenia Joyner couldn't get a job anywhere. You know, it's like you almost between a secretary and a paralegal is what I was offered. And I said, oh, hell, if I'm going to do that, I'll work for me before I'll work for somebody else in less than what I am, because I passed the bar and I can practice law as well as others. So my dad and I sat down and talked, and he said, well, it looks like it's on you to make the move. And I said, I want to open an office. And he said, fine, I'll take you to the bank, tell them to loan you $1,000. Don't look to me to co-sign for you because I don't believe in co-signing unless I agree to pay it. And that's one lesson I learned from him. Never, ever co-sign unless you want to give that money to that person. And he wouldn't even do that for me, but he did tell the banker, she'll pay you. I raised her that way, she will. And that was how I got started. Started practicing law, and of course, every time I went to see a client in the jail, it was always a hassle, in my opinion. I had to come up with ID. It was always this and that. And I finally went to see the sheriff and said, look, there's only one black woman lawyer in this town, and that's me. Why is it that I catch all of this, you know what, every time I come to the jail? Would you just put out a notice and say there's one and she's coming?
Right.
And things eased up a bit, but I opened an office in Lakeland where I was born. So I was going between Tampa and Lakeland. And Polk County was the home of the KKK, but I was openly accepted. The mayor came, had a big grand opening, still got the magazine rack that they gave me that day. But I went down into Sebring and Winter Haven and all those little places in that little red Volkswagen Beetle. And as I reflect on it today, I said, oh my God, I was there at night because there were night court by myself. But when you're young and fearless, you just do what you have to do. But today, I said I could have not made it home.
Everybody from back then has similar.
Of course. And of course, you walk in and it was, well, who are you? Are you the lawyer's secretary or assistant?
Because you're certainly not the
Why
lawyer.
are you coming up here approaching the bench? And I just flipped my Florida bar card on them. I'm an attorney at law, Mr. Bailiff. And of course, we all experience that. And sometimes I know Delano and the stories that he would tell was about the use of the word and all. We encountered all of that, but we exercised the right that we were dutifully entitled to, and that was we're lawyers and back off.
I never grow tired of hearing these stories. Never. It's
Well, young people need to know that the battle was real then. It's and the fight is still here. It's
Right.
just it takes on a different flavor, as I call it now.
right.
So, they need to know and be aware of where we've come from. That Alton White was the first black person in this town in 1974, I believe it was, to run for mayor. and he became the administrative assistant to Mayor Poe. And from there, he ran the housing authority. He was able to get federal funds and to develop programs in the Black community. And that E.L. Bing was the first Black county commissioner, but he was appointed, and he was an educator. And then Reuben Paget became the first Black to be elected to the Hillsborough County Commission. And he had previously run for city council against Perry Harvey Jr., and he lost by 20 votes. I was right in the thick of that campaign. And then the next thing we knew, the county commission seat became available, and Reuben won. So one door closed and another opened. But young people need to know that the history of this community, the outstanding things that so many Blacks have done, and also decide what it is their purpose in life is. What is your purpose? What is it that you want to leave behind? What is it that you want to champion? What do you want your legacy to be? These are things that need to be taken seriously.
I totally agree. And I know we are winding down here, so I want to ask you one final question, and with a relatively short answer because of our time. And obviously, I'm sensitive to Black judges and the absence of enough of them. And Florida Supreme Court has no Black justices right now. There's clearly, it's been documented that Hillsborough County itself doesn't have enough Black judges. What's the value of a Black judge?
It means the world to a Black person to walk into a courtroom and see that justice will be administered by someone who looks like them. There's nothing that makes a bigger difference in your life than knowing that at least I have a chance at equality. So it emboldens you to walk in and see one. You feel empowered because you know that this person has a perspective that includes you. And we need to fight like hell to get more Black judges.
Yeah, it's
very political.
It's very political. Yeah.
But we need to penetrate the political process beginning, the governor makes the appointment. The Judicial Nominating Committee recommends. We got a young man who's been recommended 8 times, but he can't get any further because the power is in Tallahassee at the governor's level. We need to do something about that. We have so many fights, but we can unite and do that one with no money. We just need to speak up and speak out and show up and show out.
Well, we will end on that, and everybody, whose voice you're listening to. That is Senator Arthenia Joyner, and I'm honored to have her on this show. And I never get tired of hearing these stories because I've heard them all my life, and I like to hear them from all these points of view. And it's just, we take a lot. When I say we, my generation and younger, take a lot for granted, I think, and we need to understand that you weren't born on third base, and I think we take a lot for granted: the ability to be a lawyer, the ability to, protest. A lot of these things that we take for granted are battles that you literally fought and you literally were on the front end of. So I want to thank you for being here as always. And we were just in St. Pete last night celebrating with the first Black mayor of St. Pete, Ken Welch. And it's 2020.
2020.
And we still doing all these first Black this and first Black that. And so we just need to make sure that we don't give up and we keep agitating and fighting. So thank you, Senator Joyner, for being here with us today. I appreciate it.
It's been my pleasure.
No, we appreciate it. Thank you. Oh, we want to have you join the Wall of Fame here and sign this. Now, we had your favorite, where is he? You see the third from the top there, your favorite mayor. And I don't have to, you know who that is.
Must be Buckhorn. Yes.
But we had his signature, and we'll put that up there, so we appreciate it. But go ahead and sign it, and we will appreciate and have you on again. We thank you. Vanguards of Democracy is funded and produced by Vanguard Attorneys, a local personal injury law firm serving the Tampa Bay area with ingenuity and an indomitable work ethic. Don't forget to follow Vanguards of Democracy on YouTube or download episodes on your favorite podcast streaming services like iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And lastly, we're excited to announce that we're launching our new landing page, www.vanguardsofdemocracy.com, where you'll be able to ask questions, recommend guests or topics, and stay up to date with news and announcements. It'll be great. If you know how to bookmark a website, this is the one that'll make it worth it. Thank you.